Just make sure we're live over here on Facebook. Okay, there we go. Yeah,
Ah,
rewind. I had to make sure it was going. Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Discovery Within podcast, where we explore the depths of self discovery and personal growth. I'm your host, Coach T.
and I'm your co-host, LJ the Peacemaker. And today we're going to be diving into the topic of fear and the role that it plays in this self-discovery journey. So we got a lot to say, and I'm super
Yeah,
excited to dive into it. I was a little bit scared myself.
yeah. So let's dive right into it. Let's talk about fear. Fear, false evidence appearing real.
Yes, I love that you said that because that's exactly what I have written in my notes here. Because, yes, fear is all in the mind and it's not ultimate truth. So,
Yeah.
where do we go from there when fear shows up?
Yeah. So first with it, we gotta dive into what fear is. And just like the acronym of it, we know that fear is false evidence appearing real. So when you know that truth about fear, you know that whenever it's in place, that it's something that's probably not true. So on this journey to self-discovery, we have people who, fear going on the journey because it brings about that fear of change, fear of going into the unknown because it's not just focusing on like the surface levels, your identity and like the titles of like society and the names you're given and stuff, but it's more so of you going inside yourself, going deeper within to find out who you truly are. And it's something that a lot of people they don't like to do.
Right.
Because in a way, when you're going through self discovery, you have to face yourself, and with facing yourself, it's not just external; it's within because everything starts within you. So some people may
Absolutely.
be afraid to face their darkness, I should say, the weaknesses, the things about themselves that they don't like. And when like coming up, we have this thing of where society, our environment, our parents, teachers, whoever, they, tell us, who we should be, how we should think, type of jobs we should have, and things of that nature. And we go along based off what something outside of us told us that we are instead of turning within. So when that time comes to when you're in that position to where you have to go within, it's like you're afraid to do it because you feel like you don't have all the right answers. And it's like being in the darkness and you don't have a light and you're just trying to figure your way out. So just going within and trusting yourself, it can be scary for certain people who haven't began the journey or, even for people that are in the journey because it's a journey. So
Absolutely.
you're gonna go through different things, you're gonna experience different things. You're not gonna know all the answers, like just diving in head first and, really just sitting and reflecting with yourself instead of you having to run from yourself. Because when fear is present, we tend to flee.
Right, right. And I mean, I think that a lot of that is a learned behavior. We're taught that this is how you respond to fear, or that, we should be afraid, like you mentioned, of different aspects of ourselves that we don't like. But once we really begin to understand that fear is in of itself a feeling, it's an emotion. So our emotions are not ultimate truth. Yes, they are true in our reality. We are experiencing certain feelings at a given time. However, they're stimulated by our perception. It's based on the way we're looking at things. And so our perception comes from the world around us, what we're taking in through our five senses. Like you said, what teachers are telling us, parents have been telling us, and things that we've taken in from the outside world. And once we get to a point where we recognize, wait a second, none of these ideas or these things that are fostering my fears were original thought. They're not things that I thought up by myself. It's coming from this external sources. Then we can begin to really start feeding ourselves different ideas, different thoughts, establishing a whole new relationship to fear. Because fear is not cause for us to necessarily have to flee. Granted, sometimes there's danger that we need to go away from. However, one of the things that I started to utilize for myself on this journey was that if something makes me scared, that means I have to do it. Because it's an opportunity for growth. Why am I scared of that? You know, if I have faith in God and I believe that God is with me, then what is there for me to fear? You know what I mean? If I'm committed to continuing to make progress and to move forward, and the next step forward is making me scared, then does that not sound like something's trying to hold me back? And what can hold me back other than myself if I'm willing to just incrementally and gradually and kindly and gently face that fear? You know, so we got to learn to be kind with ourselves as we gently guide ourselves through the fear, because growth, new opportunity, a new chapter, a new level all await us on the other side of the fear.
That's right. Baby steps. And Facebook user says, "Hey ladies, I'm not sure who you are, but hey and welcome to the show.
Yes,
Glad
thank you for joining us. We're super excited to have you.
yes, glad to have you here." But to piggyback off what you were saying about, basically like baby stepping instead of fleeing from the fear. And like I know me and you were having a conversation about fear, and I was saying like, how about just befriending your fear when it comes up? Because normally when fear comes up, we think, oh, it's something bad, or we want to shy away from, or we want to judge ourselves for actually. It's me, Coach T. Leslie. Okay, hey Leslie. Oh yes. But I was saying, like when it comes up, we are so tempted to like flee from it, or we may judge ourselves. But instead, I would encourage you to just, when fear does come up, you look at it and befriend it, and like, hey, fear, because it's basically bringing you to your awareness where you may have a possible limiting belief. Because remember, false evidence appearing real. When fear comes up, is an indication of something that's internal, that is, causing some type of blockage for you, because it can be tied to the beliefs that we have about whatever is going on at that moment. So instead of looking at it like, oh, I gotta flee it, befriend it, and treat it like a game. When fear comes up, and like that's the time for you to do introspection and go within, and question yourself, because that's what the self discovery journey is all about. So when it pops up and you have those thoughts of, oh, I can't do this, and then now that you know that you identify a limiting belief, now you have to challenge that. You start to ask yourself questions about this, and then you have that positive self-talk, and then you that is a way for you to overcome it each time, because some people think like, oh, once I overcome my fear, oh, I'm good to go. Fear is an emotion. It's going to be prevalent on your journey, and fear is not a bad thing. Fear is actually your friend, because on this journey you're going to go through different things and different experiences, because you're unlocking the deeper parts of yourself. So each time that fear comes up, it's not nothing to judge yourself about. Be happy and embrace it, because that's a moment for you to learn something about yourself. And then once you go within, do the introspection, and figure out where that fear is stemming from, you're able to overcome those moments, and then you'll be able to do it again and again, because you're not going to escape it. So
That's for sure. That is for sure. And I love that you said like befriending your fear, because ultimately that's really what this is about. Establishing this relationship with fear that when it shows up, you still remain in control. You know, where fear don't show up and now you're hiding in a corner somewhere. And I
yeah.
mean, throughout this journey, fear is a consistent visitor. Like practically on a day-to-day basis, depending on how much progress you intend to make and how far you want to push yourself. And so I mean, even with us starting this podcast, we were just talking about how we began this. And so I initially felt led to reach out to you. Seen you on TikTok, we follow each other, I really liked your content, and I was inspired to reach out to you. and there was some apprehension, some fear, the feeling like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to her. What am I gonna say? What am I gonna, do? What are we even gonna work on? And it was like I could have either let that feeling take control and not reach out to you, or I could have just done it. You know what I mean? And ultimately, I've practiced enough confronting fear where I just kind of wave at it. I'm like, oh, hey, fear, I see you over there. Yeah, you got me feeling a little shaky, but I'm going to just keep going because forward is the direction that life moves in, and it's for us to really not let anything deter us from achieving what it is that we desire. And so I reached out to you. I was brave. And then, I mean, look at us now. Look at all that has come of it. So it really just is an indicator that on the other side of that fear is something bigger and better. And it's required for us to face the fear, to stretch ourselves so that way we can meet what's on the other side. If we want that bigger and better thing that's awaiting us, then we got to become bigger and better too, so to speak. So that's what facing that fear is, us really rising to the occasion and stepping into the challenge.
Yes, and just to touch on embracing that fear, I'm grateful that you even had the courage to reach out because it takes courage, and that's a part of embracing the fear. Because when fear pop up, like when you want to run or something, you just be like, you know what, fear? Like you said, you got me a little shaky, but what's up? What's up?
Right.
We gonna go with this. We gonna flow with it. You not gonna stop me. And you treat it as like a game, but you see, like you said, the things that are on the other side of the fear. And when you reached out to me, I read the message and I was like, oh, collab. I'm like, that's great because I had already been thinking about doing collabs this year, but I didn't know how to go about it. And so it's like when you start with those thoughts and stuff, opportunity is presented. So when the opportunity was presented, when you messaged me, I was like, okay, let's do it. And so we met up, and then I didn't know what would come from it because, like you said, it's about stepping into the unknown. We didn't know
Right.
what the goal was gonna be, like what were we gonna be doing specifically, but you took the initiative to go ahead and just jump out there and say, why not? And then from conversations, because we still didn't even have them together on the first meeting, but it took us, meeting even like a few times, and then we finally decided, oh, how about a podcast? And
Absolutely.
how it came about within a week of just knowing that, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, okay. And like instead of letting the fear lead me, I leaned into it. I
Right.
went for it, and look what came about of it. Because it's like, how some people, they want to cross all their T's and dot all their I's, and make sure everything is all structured and planned out. But the greatest things come from when you just jump, when you just
Right.
do. Because in order to reach the light, you got to go through the darkness. Like, peek in there, like be curious about it. Like, and that's how you should treat your fear instead of running from it. Be like curious as to, why am I fearing? What's so scary about it? Let me see this, and look what has been birthed from actually just embracing it and going for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of times, we develop this pattern of retreating from our fear. And it's for us to really be honest with ourselves and ask us, where did that get me? Like, where did it get me not facing my fear? Am I content with where I am, or do I not want more?
Yeah.
And in order to get more, we got to be willing to do things we've never done. And
Mhm.
anytime we're stepping into the unknown or trying something new, there is always going to be some sort of fear that arises, some sort of apprehension. And it's okay. It's just part of the process. So once we really begin to understand that, oh, this is just a normal part of the process, then we don't have to react to it. We just keep walking out the path, walking out the process. But so self-doubt and like perfectionism, overthinking things, like you mentioned about like just wanting to cross all your T's, dot all your I's, those are ultimately fears too that block us. And I feel like a lot of time we don't acknowledge them as that. The self-doubt, we know, okay, maybe I'm a little scared to do this. This why I'm not doing it, but it's because I'm not good enough. But it's because I've never done that before. And we ultimately make all these excuses when really it's just fear. Because if
Yeah.
you wasn't scared, then you would just do it, And even with the perfectionism, wanting to make everything perfect before you do something is also rooted in fear because it's never going to be perfect. You don't even know everything that it entails until you actually go and do the thing. So ultimately, anything that is fostering procrastination in us is rooted in fear. And
Mm-hmm.
procrastination is when you're not doing it now. That's it. Like, it's
Yeah.
very simple. Because for me, before I thought, oh, procrastination is only when I'm working on a big project and I save it to the last minute, or oh, only when this or that. No, when you're not doing it now and there's no reason for it, then that's procrastination and it's rooted in fear. And
Mm-hmm.
as we acknowledge that, like, everything that we want to do or that we're going to try or want to pursue, it's always going to be a little awkward in the beginning. If you've never done something before, you're not going to be the greatest or the best at it. But all it takes is that one time, so then you can do it, and that first time is the scariest time. But we have to
Mm-hmm.
push ourselves, and that way we know, oh, wait, look, I did do it. Okay, I did it once, now I can keep practicing and do it again and again and again. And that's the only way that we do get better and that we do improve and that we will achieve our goals. So we got to be brave, and it's not about other people's standard of brave. It's about you confronting whatever it is that's making that fear rise up in you and showing it who's boss. Like, you're the boss of your life. Go get what you want. You deserve it.
Yeah, and we talk about, individuals come becoming their own heroes in their story. And to become your own hero is going to take courage on your behalf. But
Absolutely.
like, just to take the first step, because the hardest part about the whole journey is actually getting started. That's the hardest part for everything for everyone to do, because it's like I said, you want to cross all your T's, dot all your I's, make sure you got this in place. You want to make sure you're making this amount of money, and you put all those barriers and those limitations and stuff on yourself to block you from progressing instead of just throwing yourself out there and then, maneuvering and figuring it out as you go. But you got to treat it like it's a journey, because like you said, baby steps. Because those small steps, like, as you could look at something big and think, oh, it's going to take a lot for me to do that. But if you look at it and you start to take those small steps, your small steps, they become big steps. And then as you make those small steps, make sure that you're celebrating, because actually getting started, that's something that you could congratulate yourself on, because you can look back and say, man, I was scared to do that and all I had to do was this, and not focusing on like the outcome of it or wanting it to be perfect. Just celebrate you actually doing, even if you felt like you messed up, you fell flat on your face, it wasn't good at all. Don't look at it from that perspective. Look at it as, I did the thing, and it took courage. And then it opens you up to who you truly are, because it's showing you who you're not. And just like you said, like being the hero of your own story and not basically going off of who society tells you that you are, because essentially on this self-discovery journey, it's called self-discovery for a reason. It's your journey. You have to discover who you are for yourself. Can't let anybody tell you who you are, because this is your journey, and you get to know yourself. You got to go within and figure out how you're going to walk your journey. And you're going to do that by going in and not being afraid to just face yourself and ask yourself questions, and work on your weaknesses and stuff, because a lot of us shy away because we feel like we're weak in certain areas. Because like, if you had caught me like a year or two ago and approached me about a podcast, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened, because I had an insecurity of, speaking and being in front of the camera. And it still comes up to this day. But instead of, shying away from it, I worked on those weaknesses instead of shying away from it. Because like my speech, like I stutter a little bit. And I get that from my daddy. It's his fault. But it was a weakness of mine, and I always tell this story because people tell me like, "Oh, you're so well spoken, and like, you don't ever mess up." I'm like, well, it took some work to get here because I wasn't always this way, but situations and experiences caused me to, work on that insecurity, like being placed around people. I was doing podcasts, and when you have that fear, like, what am I gonna say, like you're so focused on how you're going to perform or whatever, how it's going to go. And then for me, it was my speech. It's like I might get up there and just stutter the whole time, but it says, but I just went for it anyway.
Right.
And I didn't like it's like planting a seed. It takes time for it to grow. You have to water, you have to nurture. So in between time when I was doing podcasts and speaking in front of people, I was by myself. The main work happened when I was by myself in the comforts of my own space. And I'm sitting in front of a mirror and I'm forcing myself to look at myself because there was a time I would have just shied away from even trying to practice because of the stuttering. But I leaned into that fear and I started, practicing in front of the mirror and working on my speech and learning how to just slow down and be calm because essentially all it was that I was speaking too fast. I wasn't calm. I was letting the anxiety and the fear take over, and that's how I was operating. So when you take that time to just pause and assess the fear and figure out where it's coming from, and give yourself time and grace to actually work through the fear, because it's your friend. It's your
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I really appreciate how you spoke on that private component because this is the discovery within. So it's very personal, it's very intimate, and it's really so much of it is you with you. Us, the only reason we're able to come here and even share with other people watching us and speak in front of people is because we've practiced it privately, because you got comfortable looking in the mirror, and because I too got comfortable looking in the mirror talking to myself in the mirror, talking myself through, telling myself you can do it, telling myself you got this, you are good enough, I do believe in you, you do matter, you are everything you want to be, you can face those fears. And it's like, a lot of times we think that the whole journey has to be on display, but there's so many private components to it where it's just you with you, and you just have to be willing to commit to yourself to consistently just take these tiny steps forward while being loving to yourself. We hear the term self-love so often, and people a lot of times attribute that to let me go light a candle, let me go take a bath. Yeah, all that stuff is nice. But really, it's about what's your self talk sound like? How do you address yourself when you fall short of your own expectation? Do you start beating yourself up in your mind? You know what I mean? Or what about when you're in an uncomfortable situation? Are you blaming yourself? Or are you just being gentle and just easing your way through? Because if we're not talking lovingly to ourselves, in our day-to-day life, then how can we encourage ourselves to face our fears, or even continue to encourage ourselves to keep going on this journey of self-discovery? Because it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's something that we really have to accept in the beginning of the
Mhm.
journey, that this is for the rest of your life. It's a new
Yeah.
lifestyle that you're embarking on, and the fear component is part of it. It's this
Mhm.
consistent cycles of facing the fears. Okay, I've stepped into a new level, I've faced one fear, and as we're honest with ourselves and really look at ourselves, then we begin to see other areas where we do need to grow and other fears that we need to face. So it's like this real commitment that we have to have, and it's to ourselves, it's not for anybody else. And it begins with ourselves at home, in private, in the mirror, telling yourself you can do this, you do have what it takes. And that is part of what I do on a day-to-day basis. Talking myself up, reminding myself of how great I am. And ultimately, we're all great. We were all born with a purpose, and the things that we desire are clues to what our purpose is. So if you want a thing, it's because you're meant to have it. So if you don't face the fears or work through whatever limiting beliefs are blocking you, then you will never have what is for you or what your purpose is. So we got to be brave. And again, it's about the practice. You face
Yeah.
one little fear and then you got a little braver. Then you face another one, now you're braver. And you continue to just grow in courage. And ultimately, you become unstoppable because fear can't stop me. So you're no longer afraid of it. It's like you said, Coach T, it's your friend. You wave high when it shows up. Oh, it's you again. What's up? Ready for this
Yes.
ride?
Yes, and that's exactly how you have to treat it. But like just to continue with that, you can create a safe space for yourself, especially when the fear comes up, because like you said, it's really a bulk of it is going to be you facing yourself. So all that work it has to be done just you, honestly, because you can get all the motivation, you can get all the encouragement from others, but it's going to take you taking that inspired action to, you know, ensure that you overcome that. So just creating a safe space for yourself, especially when the fear pops up and you may feel ashamed of it, because a lot of us may feel shame. I've been there before and I still, do it myself, but I learned how to create a safe space for myself when those fears come up, or, I'm not operating in my true essence. And you can just figure out how that works for you, what that safe space is going to look like for you. Whether it's, having like a certain room or atmosphere that you create for yourself. I don't care how you do it, whatever you do to get comfortable, where it's just a room, where it's just candles in it and no sound, or it's a place where it's quiet, or you may have some music playing. It may be you just taking a stroll. Like for me, when I started my self discovery journey and I was going through like my uncomfortable stages and like, fear and going into the depths of myself and, facing those things about myself that I was ashamed, I used to take walks down the road. I didn't, have a set area that I was going to actually walk to. I was just going to walk and talk to myself and work through that fear and figure out where it was coming from. Because in order for you to become your own hero in your story, you have to face that darkness within you. And it's a beautiful thing because it's necessary for you to, be the best you that you can be. So create that safe space where you're, being compassionate with yourself. And I would say to just treat yourself like you would treat your child or a child. Because if you have a child in front of you and they're trying to, get up and walk and they fall and they may cry. And you pick them up, you comfort them, but let them know, like, let's try it again. You have to treat yourself in that same way. Treat yourself as if you're a child, because essentially we're all children. We're all here to learn. No one knows it all. So give yourself that space when you're going through that fear, to just, you know, give that compassion to yourself as if you were a child. It's like parenting yourself. So that's another way, just to create a safe space for yourself.
Absolutely. That is definitely important. And to have that time with yourself, like going for walks is a wonderful one because that's something I had started doing too in the beginning of my journey. Because you need time with your own thoughts away from all the other noise. So it has to be very, very intentional because you're not going to find that time by accident. Life is busy. It requires multitasking. We got to stand on our head while doing five other things. So it's important to be very intentional, or else you're not going to find those safe spaces for yourself. It's up to you to create them. I know another thing that really helped me in the beginning of my journey was really this understanding that, like, um, God made us, and God doesn't make junk. God only makes good things. God is good. So therefore, ultimately, we're good. You know what I mean? You were handcrafted, specifically made. You're not an accident. Everything about you was designed on purpose. And so when we're thinking of ourselves, it's for us to really come to this place where we're thinking of ourselves as good, and not because we're denying aspects that are our shortcomings or things like that, but where we're honestly looking at them. because honesty is good. You know, denying the truth about us is not good. And so it's like really aligning with this honesty component. You know, okay, I'm not so good at this, but I would like to be better. And the truth is, I can improve if I practice this. And so ultimately, you know, with me really embracing that truth in every area of my life, it really developed this awareness where any area where I was speaking negatively about myself, I knew that wasn't from God. It's like, why am I saying that? If God is good, God
Yes.
made me, and I'm not junk because God don't make junk, then why am I speaking against myself? You know, so therefore, it really helped me to begin to reframe those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not so great at this, but I can improve. Do I want to improve? Yeah. Okay, so what's one small step I can take immediately to begin improving in this way? And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as I began to do that, then I did begin to improve in certain areas. And then my confidence was fostered in that area because I was actually practicing it. I was actually working on it. I was actually looking at myself and being honest. And this honesty component is so critical because we so often don't want to look at things, don't want to look at aspects of ourselves that scare us, don't want to look at that dark side, you know, the shadow self or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. And ultimately, we're a whole person. So each aspect of ourself is making up the whole, you know. But as living beings, everything's subject to change. Like our cells are constantly regenerating, and so our thoughts can regenerate as well if we so desire it, but it has to be intentional. We can reframe our perspective about ourselves, about any aspect of the way that we behave. We can steer it in a new direction. And I mean, that's one of the exciting things on this journey of self discovery because it allows you to really step into your power. Like, we actually have the capability to change any aspect of our lives that we're not content with, and also for the most part any aspect of ourselves. And I'm not talking about surgery or any of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about if you identify a character trait, a mindset, any aspect of yourself internally that you're not so happy with, you can begin to reframe it and retrain yourself to approach it in a different way. And I mean, fear is one of these main things because society has all of these stigma again. Oh, fear. Oh, don't do this. Or your parents, maybe your mom was scared of a mouse. Now you've grown up. Now you're scared of it too. So it's like so many of these things are inherited, and we can learn a new thing, learn a new way, but it only comes from us being willing to take these small steps, this small incremental action, and be honest with how we really feel. You know, really looking at things and saying, wait a second, that is making me feel scared. And it goes back to what you were saying, asking yourself these questions. Okay, that is making me feel scared. Why do I feel scared? You know, and addressing what that's from. And it's not about necessarily taking this long journey all the way into the past, but it's
No.
once you identify it, you can reframe it and start shaping it how you want it to look. I'm scared of this because this happened to me. All right, that's in the past. That's not happening to me right now. Right now, I'm here. So
Yeah.
this is not that situation, so I can face this as the adult, the grown woman that I am today, not the small child who was afraid. You know what I mean? And it's like as we talk ourselves through, then we are able to face things, you know, and it doesn't mean that we don't feel scared. It just means that we can talk ourselves through and gently walk ourselves through. So we got to be our own best friend.
Yes. And like I always say, everything does start with you, but it is so empowering, to actually face those fears and go within. Because once you overcome them or you make those steps, you get a sense of your power and you get to see just who you truly are. And that's going to be a big step for you, especially when you're building your confidence, because the things that you once thought that you couldn't do, you're now doing. And sometimes, even with the fear, sometimes that fear is not your own. It could be a
Yeah.
projection of someone else. Because, like I said, we've been told by our parents, society, who we are and how we should do. You ever had those moments where you wanted to do something, try a new career or, do something off the wall, something that you created. And then you had those people around you saying, putting their limitations and their fears on you. But I don't think you should do this. I don't think you're ready for this. And they're talking to you as if they know you better than you. And then if you're not a person that's, strong within yourself and on this self-discovery journey and knowing yourself and standing in your power, you will let that person's fear
Right.
overtake you and talk you out of going and doing the thing because you had the inspiration and you were getting ready to take the inspired action. But because you shared that with someone who, has those limiting beliefs, who hasn't worked through their fears, and now they projected their self-doubt on you. Now you want to not do the thing because, well, you know what, they might be right. And it's like, you were on track, you knew what you wanted to do,
Right.
but because you let
Absolutely.
someone outside of yourself influence you, now it's like you don't know who you are. But it's like that reminder, like when that fear comes up, whose fear is this? Is this something that I came up with? Is this a belief about myself, or did it come from outside of me? Like, who was I talking to? What happened? And like you said, it's not always about going into the past, but our past and our past ways of thinking can play a role in what, our beliefs are in the present moment. So like when those fears come up, you always can see like what's the source of that.
Right.
Where is this coming from? Because the thing about your thoughts and your beliefs, like your beliefs, they're not even true. They're just a thought that you repeatedly kept having. But it's like the more you think of it and that's what you're harping on, of course that's what you're going to get. So when you change your perspective and how you look at things, and then when that fear comes up, you like, what's up? What you got for me today? And you still go for it. It's like it's not going to stop you because you know who you are now. And that's going to be a major step on this journey because you're always going to have those moments where you feel it. But it's not a bad thing. But knowing when you have those fears, know who you have in your circle. And sometimes don't be so quick to share, certain things that you want to do for yourself because you may not have all the answers. And if you're already uncertain within yourself and you bring that to another person who's not even sure about themselves, then that only adds to it. So as you go on this journey and you're, working through your own fears, you have that confidence to, go to the next one. Anytime another one pops up, oh, I'm ready for this one, because you're gonna keep meeting yourself at different levels. You're gonna keep unlocking places within yourself that you didn't even know about. And that's the scary part about going into the unknown. But like you were saying, like some of us are afraid to explore the darker aspects of ourselves, or the sides of ourselves that we don't want to the world to publicly see. But in order to get to the light, you have to go through the darkness. There's no night without day.
Right.
So just looking at it from that perspective is always a good reminder as to it's inevitable. And
Absolutely.
there's nothing wrong with your darkness, because what I found out is that most of the things that we fear, or most of the things that we don't like about ourselves, meaning the weaknesses, those are the things that are going to be our strengths. Your weaknesses turn into your strengths once you work on them and you go through that fear, because you're thinking you're inadequate because you feel like, oh, well, I'm not so good in this area. But that may be the area that may be tied to your purpose. Because for
Right.
me, I was afraid to speak and get in front of the camera, even have conversations with people. But as I sat with myself, because you're gonna get to a point when you get tired of yourself, because either you deal with the fear or it's gonna deal with you. Because
Yes.
your fear is not there to harm you. It's just there to make you aware of what's going on inside of you, your mind, and how you're thinking and stuff. And for me, once I started working on the things that I felt like I was weak at and that I wouldn't be good at, I realized that my weaknesses were tied to my purpose. That's the muscle that I had to
Yes.
develop. And you don't just get muscles when you go in the gym and just, go in there and pump some iron for one day. It takes time. It's a process. It's like a plant. You plant a flower, you put the seed in the soil, you got to give it time. You got to water it. It's not going to happen overnight, but with time. And that's the part that I feel like a lot of people, get stuck on, because a lot of us want instant gratification. Like we want to feel good all the time, which is not a bad thing. But know that there's got to be a balance somewhere, because everything isn't going to be one way all the time. But you
Right.
got to embrace, because I don't like to get caught up in good and bad. But embrace both, because they're both necessary. When that fear comes up, it's like, okay, instead of me looking at it from this standpoint, like, this is something bad, it's like, no, it's here to show you something about you. It's about
Right.
you. So just
Absolutely.
explore it and have that childlike curiosity. And that's why I'm always big on just having fun with life, because you just don't, like, when you have that child imagination, that childlike curiosity, the things that can come from that. Like you said, when you reached out to me, look at what was birthed from it. We
Right.
didn't know that we were going to get here, but we're right here
Exactly.
in the midst of it. This was very unknown, and it's fun.
Yes, it is very fun.
It's
It
like
definitely is.
the spontaneity of life when you go to the unknown, like the uncharted territory. You go towards the things that people tell you not to go to. So,
Right.
like, when you're living in that, you get to see just where your power is, because you are your own hero. This is your
Absolutely.
journey. Can't nobody tell you how you need to go about your journey. You have to discover how you're going to go about your journey for yourself.
Absolutely. That is so, so true. And I mean, it's like ultimately we have these ideas that somebody's going to show up and save the day for us. And we're the only one that can save our life. We're the only one that can go after what we want. And we're the only one that can really bring ourselves to our true happiness and true feelings of fulfillment. And so we have to be willing to be brave, to face our fears, to fight for ourselves, to tune out things that are not giving us the right messages. You know what I mean? Like you mentioned, even people putting their limiting beliefs on us, because people cannot see beyond their image of themselves. If they don't think they can do it, then they damn sure ain't gonna think you could do it. You know what I mean? But it's not for us to be looking toward them to tell us we can do it. It's up to
Yes,
us to foster these beliefs in ourselves. And we only do that as we face these fears. That's how we know we can do it, because we were scared and we tried it anyway. And I mean, something that really helps me is putting up visual reminders. I have like visual reminders all around my room, and they're just post-it notes that I write statements on. One of them says I'm a fearless warrior. Another one says I'm an unstoppable force. And granted, when I wrote those things, I did not feel like that at all. I was very scared and I felt like life was beating me up. So I'd been stopped. But I understood that the feelings and the way that I was approaching life came from what I was believing, how I thought life went, what life had done to me in the past, or the things that had been taught to me by parents and, just external sources. That was what framed my perspective. And I
mhm,
realized that, I am able to retrain my mind by putting new information into my mind. And, we're all living out of our paradigms, which is all the information that's been dumped into our subconscious minds since childhood. So, our whole life, all this information is being dumped into our minds, and we're just growing up. We're not filtering through it. We think whatever our parents do is right. We think whatever the teacher at school does is right, and so all that information leaves us in these mind frames that are causing us to behave the way that we do. And once we get to a place where we realize this is not the life I want to live, I don't like how my life is going right now, then it's up to us to really acknowledge that, okay, I have to get some of that old information out of my mind. And we only are able to do that as we replace it with new information. And so our fears stem from that old information. We're only scared of things because something in the past told us that that should be scary. And the past is gone. We're in the present moment, and in the present, this is a new day, a new moment, a new situation. So it's only triggering a reminder of something old. And as we're willing to look at it, then we can embrace this situation as a new opportunity, a new time for us to do something differently. And through, these consistent visual reminders for ourselves, it's helping us to dump new information into our mind, positive information into our mind. One of the other visual reminders that I have up is positive thoughts only. And it's like, okay, how is that possible? How can you have positive thoughts only? And so for me, what I came to realize is if all things are possible with God, then I can believe for whatever I want, no matter how outlandish. Nobody has to agree with me. But through this consistent daily repetitive reminding myself, positive thoughts only, it's consistently training me to reject negative thoughts or to reject fearful thoughts,
Yes.
and not where I'm not looking at them. I have to look at them, but it's creating this deeper awareness of them. When a fearful thought shows up, I'm like, oh, hey, that's not my normal. Let me check this out. Who's over here trying to lurk in the shadows of my mind? I don't
Yes.
think so. You know what I mean? So then it really just allows you to stay in this empowered approach because we are the one that gets to shape our lives, and we are the one that has to take ownership of our minds, the thoughts that we're thinking, and the way that we're confronting things, so we do not have to tolerate the fear. And I don't mean that we got to fight against it or anything like that. No, it's about loving ourselves enough to know that we don't have to be in bondage to anything, to no
No.
fear, to no thought, to no past hurt. We can confront it all as we're brave and lovingly allow ourselves to move through it, because the only way out is through. We got to go through the feeling and see what's on the other side. And I mean, I don't want to promise that it's only good, but I believe it's only good stuff on the other side. Through that fear is like your next big break, your next big blessing, and the things that you've been looking for.
Yes. And that's so powerful when you said the only way through is like the only way out is through. And it reminds me of like you saying, like having those reminders or those symbols. Like something for me, I like butterflies. Butterflies is my key symbol for helping me to remember who I am. So like even today, like I got on my butterfly necklace, like I keep butterflies around me because it symbolizes my true essence. So when those, fearful thoughts come up, that's a moment for me to like, look at it and challenge it. And then I see a butterfly and I'm like, remember the butterfly? The
Yes.
butterfly, the stages that it goes through, how it was a caterpillar at first, but then it went through a season where it went in its cocoon and it's dark in there and then it's growing, but it's going through all of its darkness, no light or anything. And it's similar to like the same path on our self-discovery journey when we're going exploring those depths within us, like the darkness that we don't want to, go through. But it's just like the butterfly. While it's in there, whole time it's in the darkness, it's brewing and getting prepared for something much bigger. And then once it comes out of the cocoon, it's free to flow, fly wherever it is, no limits, not bound by anything. And that's another way to approach it. So, like, I would say, have you some type of reminder or a symbol to let you know, especially when those thoughts come up, because it'll help you to quickly get over the fear and go
Absolutely.
ahead and do the thing. And then like another thing for me when you were speaking, I was thinking about kids, and how we come into this world, and I like to say we're at our purest form. Like we know kids know who they are, and I say that one of the greatest teachers on this planet is kids. Because
Yes.
when you look at them in their development stages, and you see how you may have a child who you may tell them, don't you do this, and they do it anyway, but it's because they're not afraid to take a risk. They're not afraid to take a chance because they don't have these limits that society places on them until they get older, and society and their parents and their environment and the people within their environment are telling them what they shouldn't do and stuff like that. But the curiosity of a child and the imagination that they have as a kid, the things that they say to us, it may seem like outrageous, like what are you even talking about? And to us, the things that they may say is not logical. But in their imagination, they're not thinking about limits because they're in their true essence. What is a limit?
Right.
Limitations have to be taught. So
Right.
for them, they're not afraid to dream big and say the most off the wall things, even if it seems crazy to us or doesn't make sense to us. But their imagination is so big and profound. But us with our fears, and because we didn't stretch past ours, or our true essence got taken away from us, like as we got older, because we started listening to the people in our environment instead of remaining true to who we are and listening to that inner voice within. We don't listen to ourselves anymore. So we're afraid to dream. We're afraid to step outside the box and do something different or say something different, because we've been programmed to, oh, that doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be this way. But you
Right.
can't tell a child that. If a child feels like they can fly, they'll fly. But for us, how can you do that? It's like putting that limitation on them. And now we're teaching them that, where we're robbing them of their purest nature, and then they grow older, and then the same how we are now, they're actually being the same way that we are, because
Right.
we told them, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. It's like you just crushed that child's essence.
You just took the words out of my mouth, because as you were speaking, it's like you're crushing their dreams, crushing an aspect of their self, their belief in themselves. But
Yes.
yes, yes, that
And
that
it's
is
like,
very true.
and it's crazy because they come into this world already pure and whole, knowing themselves is, and not even a question. You can't ask a child what a doubt is, because there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. What is a fear? They're not fearing anything, but we place those fears into our children.
Right.
And it stunts them, because now their imagination is gone, and now they get older, and now they have these same limitations that we placed on ourselves. But for me, it didn't take me until like getting on in my adult years. I say like even like at the age of 25, where I realized like this whole time I had it figured out. Well, not necessarily like my whole life plan figured out, but who I was to my, my truest, my purest essence. I knew who I was at a very younger age. I had an imagination. I dreamed big. I was confident. Like even if I messed up, like I didn't, as a child, I didn't care how I looked to the world,
Right.
or how the world perceived me. But once you get older, and it's like we start to chip away and take away from our true selves, and then it's like we no longer know who we are, and now we're operating from fear. And like I say, on this self discovery journey, it's about discovering who you truly are and discovering who you are not. So that comes with unlearning who society taught you that you were. It's going to take you going within to remember just who you are. And those fearful moments, that's like a gift. It's a gift to you, because now you can use that as that opportunity to know who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it's like through those fearful moments is the time where we get to relinquish some of that old stuff that's been put on us, because like you said, it's not ours. It's for us to learn who we are, and also learn who we're not. And I mean, so much of the belief systems that we carry around are not ours. We did not come up with that. We were told it so many times that we just accepted it as truth, but ultimately it's not true. And it's for us to really look at ourselves and the things that we believe and the way that we think, and determine, do I like that? Is that the thought I want to keep going with? If not, then it's for us to choose something different. And I mean, part of that is facing the fear, because you're going against the grain. You know what I mean? So with that,
Yeah.
you are facing the fears, because people are not necessarily going to be very receptive of it, and it's important for us to also surround ourselves with the right kind of people, find our people, the ones that will encourage us and will believe with us, the people that you can share your dreams with. But also that takes a little bit of time. It takes on you working on yourself independently first, and then you will begin to attract the right kind of people around you who will support you. But we have to absolutely be aware of the fact that, like, our family are the one who taught us that old stuff, so they're probably not going to like the new stuff. And it
Yes.
doesn't mean you can't share it, but you have to be prepared that they may give you some backlash or something like that. And that can be scary, that fear of rejection, oh, nobody around me is going to like this. And it's not for them to like it. That's okay. It's all part of the process. They're your family. You celebrate holidays with them or whatever it is that you do with them. But with regards to your hopes and dreams, it's for you to be vigilant about protecting that because they're sacred. They came with you into this life when you were born. So, just like you were talking about childhood, when you're at your purest essence, those dreams within you are part of that pure essence and part of your true nature. And it's for us to really be our own hero in protecting those things vigilantly with all our might, and ultimately that's part of what facing the fears is all about, being willing to stand for yourself above all else. And that doesn't mean doing harm to other people. That just means protecting what matters most to you, and not casting it out in inappropriate places where they're going to trample on your dreams. Don't put your dreams out there. You know what I mean? You got to protect it. You've got to be aware and alert and discern between what is of benefit to you and what is not. And that can sometimes be a scary thing because sometimes we've got to let go of some old things, but it's up to you to go after what you want because you deserve it. You're worth it. You're worth confronting every fear that comes up for you because you are worth it just because.
Yes. Leslie says, I'm loving this conversation. I'm glad you loving it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that as well. Well, I'm loving it too. I'm having a blast.
Yes. But you said something about going against the grain, and I think that that's like my essence. I always tell people, I said, God designed me to go against the grain. And it's like you said, it's not in a way of harming anyone else or anything like that, but it's essentially I'm here for me to discover who I truly am. And so in order for me to do that, I can't go about it by doing it how the world tells me to do it, and what my mom says, my mentor says, my family says, or anything like that. I have to figure out what that is and what that looks like for me, so it ties into like your purpose. And then with your purpose, you got to think about your core values, and if those things line up with you. Because if you can have this person telling you how you should do something, but when you do that reflection and you think about your own personal values and you know for yourself, does that align with you? So you got to think about that when you're on your journey before you just, do things by the book, because there's a way that society may have it set up for you to do. But when you're going against the grain, it's going to be like everything that they're telling you that you should do or what you should be running from. That's what you should be running to,
Yes.
because you're going to be doing the thing that no one else did. And that's the whole purpose of it. You're not here to be like with the flock and follow everybody else's lead, because being the hero in your story, you have to be the leader of it. No
Right.
one else can tell you how to get there, but with you standing in your power and you having that courage to lead your own life and be your own hero, you'll attract other heroes, and then you guys come together and there's much abundance and you can create more from that. So even with those fears and stuff, you got to just place yourself around people who are on that same path as you. And for me, honestly, God has been putting me connected to like the people that go against the grain, and that those are the kind of people that truly align with me, and how I want to go about my life journey.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's like we are taught well, I know for me, most of my life at this point, that you got to be good, you got to color inside the lines, you don't want to upset anyone. And so that was something that was always so prevalent in my mind. Oh, I don't want to hurt people's feelings, I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I'm hurting my own feelings and feeling uncomfortable. you know. And so that leads me to like this radical thought that like really changed my life, and it was that you are the center of your universe. And it's like,
Yes.
wait a minute, what? You know, I'm told that it was about everybody else, not about me. But each of us is the center of our own universe. So if you picture us being the sun, and every other aspect of our life revolves around us. And it's not because it has to cater to us or conform to us, but it is because we are that central point. So any other aspect of our lives is outside of us and is revolving around us in some way, shape, or form. So it's
Hmm.
for us to determine what kind of universe do we want to be. Am I a warm, sunny universe? Or am I a cold, icy one? Or am I a bitter one? Or what is it that I am projecting outward to all that is revolving around me? And I mean, it only comes through us making ourselves or acknowledging the fact that we are at the center. We're the center of our lives, and everything else that we do is revolving around us, and we are impacting it in a particular way. And the way that we're impacting it is determined by the way that we're treating ourselves. Are we standing up for ourselves? Are we loving ourselves? Are we taking good care of ourselves? You know, are we committed to ourselves? Are we giving ourselves the room to grow and to face our fears? Because if we're not, then we will be projecting whatever limits we're creating for ourselves onto everything else that we touch, onto everything else that is evolving, or I mean, revolving around us in our universe. And so it's like we want to love people. You know what I mean? Like we have loved ones, we have children, and family members and friends that we don't intend to do harm to. But ultimately, if we're not putting that work into ourselves and really taking these stands for ourselves to grow and evolve, then ultimately we are leaving a negative imprint on everything else that is revolving around us. So I just wanted to close with that thought.
Yes, and as we wrap up, I want to just leave with everyone to, when that fear comes up, befriend your fear. Know that it's not here to harm you in any way. Know that it's a time for you to go in and, self reflect, and it's a part of you. So whenever that fear comes up, know it's a reminder as to who you are and who you're not. And always make sure that you have a symbol. Be like the butterfly. Know that you're limitless, you're boundless, and there's no limits to you. So let fear be your reminder of who you are and who you are not. Fear is your friend. And we want to thank each and everybody that tuned in today. And whether just beginning your self discovery journey or you've been on it for years, know that there's always room for growth and self discovery. So until next time, keep exploring,
Absolutely.
keep growing, and keep
Yes,
finding
that's
those
right.
secrets
And
within.
remember, fear is all in your mind. So be brave and confront it. And be sure to join us for our next episode, which will be taking place on March 8th, Friday, March 8th at 4 p.m. And we just look forward to continuing to learn, build, and grow with you. So thank you.
All right, y'all. Have a good one.
Yes, peace.